Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Neighborhood Conversations. It's a pleasure to be back into your neighborhood today. It's always good at the Neighborhood Conversations where we have inclusive conversations, welcoming people who are very unique in different ways of their life. And today we have a special treat today of welcoming the amazing Mutaz, who is an amazing leader, someone who's well respected. I've heard that he's a soccer referee. I heard so much about him being an instructor at the NSCC campus. Woohoo, NSCC! It's really good to connect with Mutaz today. Mutaz, welcome to the Neighborhood Conversations. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm excited. Looking forward to today's podcast. It's my very first podcast experience, so I'm
Woohoo!
excited to see how it turns out. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. First podcast, first for everything. So, welcome to the Neighborhood Conversations, and we're happy to have you. I'm going to start off this question. I always try to say this is like an interview question when hiring someone. Tell us about yourself in a nutshell. Yeah.
So, people might know me also as Mutaz Ayyash. So, previously, I lived in Palestine before moving to Canada, in which my name was Mutaz. And when I moved, I changed my name to make it more Canadian culture. So I changed it to Matt. And at that time, it was 1993, so quite a while ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas nowadays, I've thought about it and realized that no, I am Mutaz. Why did I change my name and all of these things? So I've recently changed my name socially once again back to Mutaz. As for the government and their perspective of the whole thing in my name, they can call me whatever they want. They want to keep using Matt, that's fine. But socially, I go by Mutaz now. So as I said, I moved from Palestine, and moving, I experienced quite the culture shock. I felt like a UFO had picked me up and dropped me on a completely new planet. So as I said, I moved when I was 13, and I originally had joined an ice hockey team. When I had first seen hockey, I was like, "Whoa, what is this? This is so cool!
Wow.
I had never seen it before."
Yeah.
And in Palestine, I had played soccer and various things, but I was so fascinated by hockey, I decided to get involved. Although it is a rather expensive sport, and my interest dwindled by the end of it, so I ended up not continuing. However, I have played pretty much all sports since then. Name a sport, and I've played it. And later on in my life, I was part of the deaf soccer team, and we went to Venezuela for a huge international tournament. So we played Mexico, Argentina, all of these different countries, and we got destroyed. I think we won one game, actually. But it was a fun experience, and it was really good. And at that point, well, really, I continued playing soccer throughout my life. And I was always involved in hearing leagues. There wasn't any deaf interaction. There wasn't any option for that. So I kind of lost motivation because communication was so hard, and I was losing confidence. And then I found the deaf Canadian soccer team. They were established in 2006 in Toronto with the goal of attending the Pan Am Games in 2007. So I found my motivation once again. And joining a deaf team, having the communication was an amazing benefit. And I learned so much because previously I had missed out on the learning opportunities due to communication, whereas now I had a coach that spoke my language. They could sign with me. So I was learning all of the rules and all of these things that I had previously missed out on. And really, that experience completely changed my life. It gave me the confidence in myself to be able to play the sports that I wanted to. And I started to feel that I could show hearing people that I'm capable of doing this. And when I got back and I started playing sports, I knew that there were situations where I would have to prove myself and do twice as much work as anybody else, because the hearing people would kind of like look at me with suspicion as to whether or not I could play. And I've always had an interest in sports, but it wasn't until playing on the Deaf Canadian team that I had the confidence necessary to be like, no, I can do this, and I could prove to people that I can do this. And that led to me setting up the Ninja Turtles sports team. So it was a co-ed team, and we played various sports under Halifax Sports and Social Club, as well as Halifax Plays. So there were two separate leagues at the time, and they were just recreational leagues. And we had deaf players join, some interpreters join, some signers, some uninitiated hearing people who didn't know sign at all. But it was a really good time. And over the course of about 6 years, we had about 7 or 8 different sports and 100 or so players. I forget now. It was quite a while ago. And my focus has shifted since then. I went from that to playing soccer and then eventually to refereeing. But I'll stop myself there because I've expended so much on the simple about me. So I'll cut myself off.
No. I think that's amazing that you share all the history, and also I love that you have you're a person of all trades that has a huge interest in sports and stuff like that. So I'm gonna like start this question off. Let's talk about the story of you being a soccer refugee. How did it all started? Like where did the passion come from in that area? Yeah, what gave you passion?
So in 2016, actually, after my first year, I received this award.
Oh wow! Woo! That's awesome! Yay! That's awesome.
I was completely shocked. I was out walking a dog at that time when I received a message. My mother had commented on Facebook. And I was so excited to find out that I had won, and it had influenced the excitement of the dog. And whether or not the dog was excited for me or just to be pet, I don't know. But it was a great day all around.
Yeah.
One of my favorite days, actually.
Oh wow.
So, how did it all start? Well, first of all, I would have to thank Teamwork as an organization. There's a deaf worker there, Marie-Josée Crawford, also known as MJ Crawford. I'll try to keep this as short as possible, but she provided interpreting access for me to be able to do things. So in my case, it was a reffing course. I was going to need an interpreter in order to take this course, but it was a matter about funding and where we were going to find that. And Teamwork helped me find that. And they funded it for about 2 or 3 years. And after that, I was involved and I was motivated by myself and I was working and doing all these things. So we actually managed to shift it over and have Soccer Nova Scotia start paying for things and take the responsibility away from Teamwork to let them kind of set the foundation and get the support needed, and then we could take it over. Because obviously they wouldn't be able to support everybody forever, like they would run out of money and all these things, but it was a great way to start. Similar to NSCC, there's a staff interpreter now, whereas 10 years ago, that wasn't a position. So access is growing. It's just a matter of finding the money and the companies that are willing to put in the effort and the money for it.
That's really amazing. Wow.
So I myself, as I mentioned, the co-ed team, there was a little bit of drama starting The co-ed leagues at that time didn't have refs at all. It was a self-refed league, and they realized that it was probably time to start bringing in some refs, and asked us to volunteer. So I volunteered a couple of times. I was like, yeah, okay, sure. And I really enjoyed it. So then I decided that, well, maybe I could look into this further and see what else I could do. So I found a course about reffing. And in order to do that, I took the course, and that allowed me to start reffing children's games. And then it just took off from there. And I remember my very first game. I was like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've learned all of this in class, but this is the first actual game. And there were a lot of people that were confused. They were like, well, you're deaf. How is that going to do? Like, how, yeah. Are you sure? And the one person that supported me the entire time was actually my father. He was like, yeah, go for it. Do it. And I was like, okay. And there was even people within the deaf community. I had one person come up to me and was like, you want to be a soccer ref, but how are you going to do that? You're a deaf person. And I was like, oh, okay, well, whatever. So at my very first game, I gestured, and when the players come to the middle for the coin toss, I was like, I'm gesturing to them to let them know that I'm deaf, and they're looking at me in complete shock, and they're like, oh, and then they're looking at each other, and they're looking back at me. It was very awkward. I didn't exactly know what to do. But after a couple of years, I had worked with several people by this point. Word got out, and it was much smoother and much easier. People knew who I was and knew that I was deaf. It spread without me actually realizing that that was happening until one game I arrived and someone was like, oh, right. I went to introduce myself and let them know that I was deaf. And they're like, yeah, we know. You're deaf. Yeah, cool. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, so I originally, the motivation was just, why not? Let's see where this goes.
Yeah.
And previous to becoming a ref, I would watch games. And I was like, yeah, okay, this is fun. This is nice. But as a ref, I got the 360 completely immersive view of the game, which was amazing.
Yeah, wow.
And my passion lays with the game. So being a ref, it's not an easy job, but I'll explain on that a little bit more. But it's nice to be part of the game and allowing equality of the game.
Wow, that's really amazing. Equality, bringing access and sharing all the stories of that. That's really amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. You talked about your dad being the one who helped to keep you moving forward. Would you consider, I know I had the question as who is your role model and why? Let's talk more about that.
I look forward to my family's security in the future. That's the main goal as a father.
The empowerment from changing careers has really just made me want to get out of bed in the morning.
I'm looking forward to growing my business. So I want to hire people like I was hired. I want to give guys that chance.
Il me fera plaisir de continuer à travailler avec les immigrants francophones en Nouvelle-Écosse.
I'm looking forward to the financial freedom that I never had before.
It's actually funny you bring that up. So when I think of role model, I think of several people. There isn't necessarily one person that comes to mind.
Right.
I have different role models for different things. So my work at NSCC, I think of one person, and then any aspect of my life. I mean, I could go on about role models all day. But yes, in this case, my dad, yeah. He has a very strong personality. He stands up for himself. Oh, here, I'll give you a little bit of a story of my experience growing up. So growing up, I would try to use my deafness as an excuse. I'd be like, oh, I can't do it. I'm deaf. Oh, pity me. Do it. And my dad was like, shut up. Go do it. he's like, you have to figure out how to live in this world. Go and figure it out. So he taught me to push the excuses aside and figure out the things that I can do and how I can do things. So my entire family is hearing. I'm the only deaf member of my family. And it's impossible for them to fully understand what it's like to be a deaf person. And that's okay. They're never going to get it completely. But if we go with an example, so let's say I had a wife. I don't have a wife, but we'll say for this example, I have a wife and she's Black. And I can never fully understand her experience because I'm never going to be able to be fully in her shoes. So it's the same idea for deaf people and hearing people. My hearing family is never going to fully understand who I am, but they're supportive and they encourage me to be myself, to be Mutaz Ayyash, not to be a deaf person using my disability as an excuse for things. They want me to be my full authentic self. And this might be new for people watching. So a lot of the time we hear the term people of color or immigrants. I myself identify as racialized. So yeah, so my identity would be racialized deaf person. And there's always a debate around people who prefer to start their identity with deaf, as opposed to whatever else they identify with. Whereas I put racialized first and deaf second. And this is because this has affected my experience and my upbringing more than being deaf. Being racialized is the stronger of my identities. So I would be a racialized deaf man.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And it's really good to hear the way of how you describe role models in different ways of capacity and in different areas of your life, I would say. But also knowing that you still educate and you still bring forth the role models like your father, and also seeing that your father gave you that inspiration and motivation to don't allow you to use your disability for something that you can not do, but you can do it. You just need the motivation to do it, and continue to move forward. How did you keep the motivation when you felt like giving up? Like I know sometimes people feel that giving up. Like what kept you motivated when you felt like giving up, when people don't understand you, or within that area of disability. Yeah, let's go from there.
I mean, that's the billion-dollar question right there. Honestly, I've been roughing for 7 years now. And there are times where the game ends and I'm driving home and I'm contemplating whether or not this is what I actually want to do and if I should continue, which is the same for anybody working any sort of job. But I try to remember the positives. So if I come home, then I get to look at my award and remember that I did this in my first year, or remember past games that felt amazing. And I remember that I enjoy soccer and I have a lot of people supporting me. So when communication is frustrating, or I'm driving home and thinking about the last game, how I can improve for the next game, because that's really what it's about. It's about improving. I don't want to leave the game and just kind of forget about it. And if I hit a barrier, then okay, fine. If I'm hit the barrier and I fall down. Well, I'm going to get back up. And eventually I'm going to get through that barrier.
Yeah.
Everybody falls.
Yeah.
But the important question is, are you going to get up? Because getting up is what proves to the rest of the world that
Right.
you can.
Right.
And about 2 months ago, I'm working as a teacher. This year has been very, very busy. I had a very hard week at school, and then I was reffing on the weekends. Sometimes I was reffing weekday nights as well. So I was like, oh, maybe I need a break. Maybe I need to step back or cut back a little bit. So I've actually taken a break from reffing for about a month now in order to focus on school and teaching. And I'll decide in the summer whether or not I want to go back.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, there was an incident that took place about a month ago. There was a video uploaded, and thankfully that supported my argument against a coach who displayed autism attitudes and comments against me. And there was a video that captured all of this, which helped during the game. But he actually came to me after the game as well. And I knew that there had been a comment made based on the gesturing that he had done, but I didn't know exactly what had been said. So thankfully there was a video, and I was able to find out what was said, and other people now know what was said. And I did a vlog about this to allow people to know that I'm okay. It's not the first time things like this have happened. It's nothing new, unfortunately. It was a major event and incident, but I didn't want people to think that I was stepping back from the game and reffing due to this one particular person.
Yeah.
I wanted them to know that I'm doing this in order to have some more time for myself, my friends, my family,
Right.
things that I was missing because I was working during the week as well as on the weekend. So
Yeah. That's really important. It's really good that you took the opportunity to recognize that, but also using the platform to inspire people to say, "Hey, self care is important, and I have to take care of myself, and I have to be able to support the persons that I love." In order for me to succeed in these other areas of my passion, and that's really important as you continue to move forward. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, how are you being an inspiration to your students at NSCC? I know that you just talked about focusing on teaching and educating with your students. Like how are you being an inspiration to them to continue to build and to move forward in life?
ooh, where to start? So the first year of the program, students know maybe the alphabet. So communication isn't very strong. We use interpreters, such as we're using right now, in order to help teach. In the second and third year, they're learning how to be an interpreter.
Wow.
So I'm teaching people that are doing the job that we see right here. And as you can tell, it's very different. So the interpreter right now isn't struggling to understand what I'm signing. But at one point, they would have been in the program themselves and been a little baby, just learning how to learn this little weird language that's happening and developing their skills. And I try to tell my students that. I'm like, you're little babies right now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You'll learn, you'll grow, and eventually your skills will develop. And I don't want them only to grow as an interpreter. I want them to grow as people.
Yeah.
And similar to any job, there's challenges, but I enjoy them. And that's why I like to I continue teaching. I share my experience. I mean, even right now, I have so many stories, and I've gone through them, given the questions and picking and choosing. So I share stories like this with my students as well. And also, every class is different. There's different challenges every year.
Yeah.
You're not getting the same group of students, the same personalities, but the goal, the end result is the same.
It's all about the end result, and it's different, and it's not the same, and it's really good that you are that light of inspiration to them, to continue to allow them to see that, hey, you're starting from as little babies, but you're growing, you're developing, you're moving forward, and you're bringing other ways of that to the people that surround them as well, to help them grow, and to be an inspiration. So thank you so much for sharing that. Mutaz, it's been a really good opportunity to interview you today. I thank you for so much stories that you've shared, and so much examples that you've given, and so much experiences that you have, live experience, I would say, that you have given to us as all, being that you can share that light of hope, and talking about leaving us with a word of encouragement. Leave us with a word, a quote, a saying, or something that has light to this community that needs a lot of that encouragement right now. What do you got for us, Mutaz? What do you got for us?
Whatever happens in your life, choose the path where your passion lies.
Mm-hmm.
And once you choose a path, that doesn't mean you're stuck on it.
Mm-hmm.
You can change paths.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure it's your decision.
Yeah.
Don't let other people decide for you.
Yeah.
Similar to me, whether I continue reffing or I don't, or if I want to focus on NSCC fully, it's my decision. No one else gets to tell me this. I can take the break, but I always get to make the final decision. And there's a group at NSCC that are IBR, so Indigenous, racialized group of teachers. So I'm involved in that group, and there's so many discussions happening there that I get the input. But yes, so for the final word, I would say do what's best for you and your decisions. Don't let others influence you. And don't give up.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mutaz. Be passionate. Don't give up. Be open-minded, as I can interpret that in that way as well, and share the light. Thank you so much, Mutaz, for coming on to today's podcast, and you did really well for your first podcast. Really appreciate you bringing that to the connection. So thank you so much.
I like being the real me. It's much
Awesome.
easier.
And that's what we want. Be the real you. And that's how I'm going to end this podcast. Be the real you. Be yourself as you continue to connect with community. Continue to share the light. Continue to be the inspiration that you are. Don't allow no one to dictate that you can do it. Push, move forward. You can do it. You can build yourself. You can lift yourself up. You can get up. Get up. Be the one that make that decision for you to get up. Have a great day, everyone, and we'll see you at the next episode.
And we're all going to make mistakes. So just learn from it. Don't
Yeah,
beat yourself up too much.
totally. We're all going to make mistakes, and we know that it brings a whole different light, and we know that we can get back up. Thank you so much. Continue to get up, and we'll see you at the next episode. This podcast is funded by the Government of Nova Scotia.